अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ऑफ टॉपिक के एक और एपिसोड में आपका बहुत ज़्यादा वार्म वेलकम। अगर आपने अभी तक ज़ल्मी टीवी को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो फ़ौरन कीजिए। इससे बेहतर स्पोर्ट्स कंटेंट आपको पाकिस्तान में नहीं मिलेगा। आज जो हमारी गेस्ट हैं, ये कहना गलत नहीं होगा कि हम एज अ नेशन इंडेप्टेड हैं उस पूरी फैमिली से जिनसे वो आई हैं, और लेकिन इससे ये भी साबित नहीं होता कि शी इज़ंट अ स्टार हरसेल्फ इन हर ओन राइट। अगर आपने सिर्फ 2 मैचेस की ही हाइलाइट्स भी देखी हैं 2023 में, तो आप भी इनके फ़ैन होंगे, और अगर नहीं है तो मैं आपको जज कर रहा हूँ। मारिया खान, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर गिविंग अस टाइम।
Thank you so much for having me.
Please explain to the audience and to me why you don't understand Urdu.
So I understand Urdu, but I only speak 2 languages. Urdu is not one of them yet, but my first language was Pashto, or is Pashto, and English, followed by English. So growing up, the only language that was spoken to me by my parents was their tongue, right? That they spoke with their parents, and that just happens to be Pashto.
Makes perfect sense. So
I blame my parents. Every time I talk to my parents, I'm like, guys, why didn't you teach me Urdu? But they're like, this is our language. This is what we speak.
They didn't have to. So yeah, you don't have to blame anyone. So you spent most of your childhood in US, probably, Colorado. So when you see, so you had these opportunities, you could go to school and play, and then you could get a scholarship because of sports and all that. When you see Pakistani women striving, getting into the team with no infrastructure, is it fascinating for you?
Honestly, they're my inspiration, right? Because for me, even though I did have cultural challenges, very similar to the cultural challenges that girls and women experience here, I had facilities, I had opportunities, I had a pathway, right? I knew what my pathway could look like if I decided to go down this road of playing football. Whereas the girls here, right, they have no right to be achieving what they are, and they're doing it, and they're proving people wrong, and they're making their families proud. And that's with limited resources, with limited infrastructure. It's insane what these women are and these girls are capable of. The resilience that they're showing and the development that they've shown in such a small amount of time. Again, it continues to be my inspiration, and it always will be. They are the reason why I keep coming back and want to fight and die for this country.
So you were probably equally good at basketball when you were young. So
how did you know that? I love basketball.
I did some research. When a sportsman or woman have to decide which sport to take professionally, it must be really hard. Choosing one over the other.
It was really hard, especially when you have your grandfather telling you every day, Maria, why aren't you playing squash? So that was a whole different story. But at some point you have to pick, right? Because the commitment, the demand that any sport requires, it's very difficult to do both. But I do believe that having played multiple sports at a young age taught me different things and helped me get better and helped me be better in football, right? Running cross country or doing athletics, right? Helping with endurance, helping with speed, stamina. Basketball, helping with hand-eye coordination, right? Ability to make decisions quickly, because basketball is a very fast game, right? And then obviously the football, which had a very special place in my heart and is the sport that I did decide to pursue at a higher level. Wasn't easy, but again, subhanallah, things work out how they're supposed to.
मेरे इंट्रो में भी क्योंकि जिक्र था और अब मारिया ने खुद भी कह दिया, तो अब मैं बताता चलूं, अगर आपको अभी तक नहीं पता, कि मारिया हाशिम खान की नवासी हैं। 6 वर्ल्ड ओपन, 10 ब्रिटिश ओपन, और इस फैमिली ने इतने स्क्वॉश प्लेयर्स दे दिए हैं पाकिस्तान को। जितनी पाकिस्तान की उम्र है तब से इस फैमिली से स्क्वॉश प्लेयर्स आ रहे हैं और अभी तक आते चले जा रहे हैं। सो अगेन, डिड यू एवर थिंक ऑफ ऑप्टिंग स्क्वॉश?
No. No, in all seriousness, it was something that I grew up around, right? I saw my uncles, I saw my cousins, I saw, my grandfather. We would go to the athletic club that he was a part of in Colorado all the time, right? He would come on the court, and even in his 80s, mashallah, he'd get us on the court in his 80s and he would still make us run around, right?
And in US, everybody in that club knew who he was.
They knew who he was. He was the squash pro there. They saw, he was actually brought over to Colorado from Michigan to be able to help build the squash program in the Midwest of the United States. So people, they knew his achievements, they knew his accolades, they knew what he did for Pakistan, and that level of respect was there for him and his family, which is why we were allowed to actually come to a private club and, hit the ball around when the courts were open. But Grandpa would always joke with me that my backhand was stronger than my forehand. So I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign of the squash abilities or squash talent that I did or didn't have. But again, it was, great to be able to see what Grandpa did, and what he was able to accomplish in his time, and only having turned professional at the age of 36, right? When most people are retiring. That's when Grandpa went and played in his first tournament, right? So for me, that's the motivation that I grew up around, right? And that's what I saw. That was what I knew an athlete to be, right? Is with your constraints, what can you do, right? How can you make a situation better? How can you make the most of the situation you're given? Because at the grandfather's story, he was a ball boy, right? At the British Officers Club in Peshawar. Open courts at the time. He was the ball boy. The officers would hit the ball out of the court. He'd go run, throw it back over, right? And when the British officers would leave, he would sit there barefoot and play with himself for hours. So again, knowing that story, seeing him, and, obviously I didn't get to see him in his prime. I wasn't born yet. But knowing the stories, and it's for me, it was a very easy decision to come to Pakistan and do my best to build my own story, right? Because I didn't expose or tell anyone, hey, guess who my grandpa is, right? Because I felt it was important. This is my journey, right? And I want to be able to make my own journey and do it for the right reasons.
So whatever little we know, or I know, football isn't really big in US. What made you pick football?
So for girls, actually, football is a very big sport. Growing up, it was one of the more popular sports for girls to play at the time. And my love for it actually started on the playground at the age of 6 years old. During lunchtime, you have recess, you get 30, 45 minutes to do whatever you want. Go run around, jump around, whatever you want to do outside. And I just found myself playing football with the boys, and actually competing with the boys and beating the boys a couple times. So for me, that feeling I felt at recess time against those 6-year-old boys, who are mean, by the way, school kids are mean, feeling that empowerment, and feeling good and feeling free, I think that is what really made me fall in love with the sport in the first place. I didn't realize it then, but looking back on it now, I know how pivotal and symbolic that experience was.
So in US, you can make a living out of football?
Actually, at the time, so when I was graduating university in 2013, the women's league at the time, the professional women's league at the time, was very volatile. There was one season it was on, one season it wasn't on. There was no consistency, right? So just again, the sport was up and coming, right? Even though it was popular at a youth level and at a university level, the professional game was still developing, right? So you go to, your desi parents and say, hey, I want to be a professional athlete. It's like, no, right away, right? They're like, no, you need doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's it. These are your only options. Take it or leave it. But again, it was it was something that was challenging, and it just being a professional athlete at the time was not an option. So I decided to continue my education, get my master's, and that's when I moved to the UAE because it just wasn't being a professional wasn't the time.
Sorry for cutting.
No worries. I got my MBA. So I have my master's of business administration, and that happened in the UAE. I was supposed to go back home right after I finished my degree. But then 10 years later, I'm still married and living in the UAE and now trying to get my family to move over.
So was there ever a plan B, as in what kind of job would you have been doing if you were not a professional footballer?
So I think it was, the professional footballer thing just happened. It wasn't something that I was aiming for, striving for, thinking, oh, I have to do, right? I felt that my time in the US and my playing that I did there, I was like, okay, right? There's nothing else that I know of. So let me now focus on starting my career, going into corporate, utilizing my business degrees, and just not necessarily forgetting about football, but keeping it on the side as a hobby. So I never stopped playing. Even when I moved to the UAE, I kept playing. I got involved in the women's football community in the UAE. And that's then in 2016, 17 is when I found out about women's football in Pakistan. And the second I found out about that, I tried to get involved as fast as I could because I'm like, what? That this is happening and it's amazing that it's happening. And then in 2018, I actually came over and played in my first women's national championship. It's a tournament that happens once a year.
So we will come back to Pakistan a little later.
Okay.
Yeah. So UAE.
Yes.
How's the football scene in UAE like? And isn't UAE too hot for football?
So the good thing is we don't play during the summer. Absolutely no league or outdoor. We still do train during the summertime, but as far as competition and stuff, definitely off limits in the summertime. So yeah, came to UAE, finished my business degree, and was still involved in women's football. It's still developing, right? So a lot of countries in Asia are still working to develop their women's domestic football infrastructure. UAE is one of them. They have the resources, they have the facilities, they have the demand, but it's a very unique situation in the UAE because you have such a big expat community and a very small local or Emirati community. And you have to kind of find a way to bridge the two communities together.
So locals also play?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the UAE actually, mashallah, they have a very good women's national team and under 20s national team that are performing very, very well right now. And so the talent, even though the Emiratis are such a small population size, what's been done with the girls there, it's amazing. And it's been fascinating to see their development over the past 10 years.
I'm so sorry. I must be coming across as a naive person because I actually am. So there's very little I know about women football.
Yeah.
So and I'm really curious to know more.
Yeah.
So then you found out about Pakistani team.
Yes.
That it exists.
Yes.
And you tried to.
I started messaging everybody. Yeah. I was like, "What is this? What's going on? What's the scene?" Whether I play or not, I would love to just be involved, right? Because I saw what football did for me, right? It's introduced me to people. It's how I met my husband, right? Was through football. It's brought so many opportunities to my life to where I wanted to bring the experience and the knowledge that I gained in the US and bring it here to help develop and to help grow the game and to give opportunities where opportunities might not lie. And I was like, just let me get him. However, in whatever capacity, I was ready and willing to get involved.
Yeah. So again, in your UAE stopover, you fell in love and got married.
Yes.
So do you think sports women get along better with people who are into sports. In your case, Omar is also a coach, football
Yes,
coach.
yes.
Or does it help in any way?
I'll be honest, it does help, right? And again, it doesn't have to be somebody that's in sports or anything like that. It just needs to be somebody that understands your passion, right? And understands, what you enjoy doing. Doesn't have to be sports, can be anything, art, music, theater, historic studies, whatever it is. As long as you're passionate about something, having a partner understand that and support your passion is so important. Right. So for me, it just happens to be football for me and Omar, right? It's something he was passionate about before he met me. It was something I was passionate about before I met him. And it just happened to bring us together. The sport brought us together. And having that kind of support system is so crucial. It's a reason why I'm still able to do what I'm doing now in the capacity that I'm doing it, right? As a professional athlete. And he understands that I need to be here, right? I need to be here with the team and training and, being a part of what's going on. If he didn't understand my passion, if he didn't support my passion, I might have somebody, in my ear saying, no, come home, right? Because I spend more time here than I do at home, right? In the UAE for the past, we were just talking about it, is, for the past 7 months, I've probably been here 6 months, right? More than I've been home. And all the girls are in the same situation, right? All the players and the coaches and the staff, we're all in the same situation. So having that support system, Omar has been extremely, extremely critical to my development as a person and as a player. So yeah, super grateful that I have that support from him.
So what is your and Omar's idea of a romantic evening? Watching a movie or a football match?
Watching Arsenal play. That is the majority of our date nights is watching Arsenal play with some takeout. No, so again, I've learned I cannot...
Football and chill.
That's literally it, right? No Netflix, no Amazon Prime, none of that. It's football. Like if you come to our home, it is football, right? Our travel, our hanging out with friends, anything. If Arsenal is playing, we are not doing anything, right? I have no choice. And Omar would gladly just be happy at home watching football. And I'm the same, to be honest.
So I ask this question everyone who comes on my show, even though I know the answer, but I'll still ask you. Once the sport becomes your job, is it still pleasurable or it feels like work?
I believe if the sport is no longer enjoyable, why are you doing it? Right? If you're no longer having fun, that means as an athlete, if I'm waking up and going through the motions every day and not enjoying my time on the pitch, off the pitch, or field or court, whatever it may be, as an athlete, if I'm not enjoying my time in my sport, why am I doing it? Right? Is it to collect a check? Is it to tell people I'm a professional athlete? Like, what is your reason? Right? But yes, you might have a reason. Yes, we all have responsibilities. But if you're not enjoying it, are you performing to the best of your abilities? Right? Probably not. Right? Because your attitude and your mental state is so important to how you perform physically. And if the two aren't agreeing, only you're going to suffer. So for me, it's so important to still be enjoying football. And if I'm not, then okay, I need to reevaluate my situation. And is this what I really want? So for me, in the US, there was a time where I fell out of love with football. And then I came to the National Women's Championship in Pakistan in 2018 and immediately fell back in love with the sport. So Pakistan football made me fall back in love with the sport. And I'm still in love.
Yeah, so don't you think sports like squash, where you're only responsible for yourself, not for your team,
Yeah.
are probably less taxing, not physically, but emotionally, than football, if one of your team members isn't doing well, it reflects on your performance as well.
Yeah. So I actually, for me, I am, people that play individual sports, they have it's unreal the amount of pressure I'm sure they go through, right? Because for us, it's easy to say, oh, there's, there's extra, reasons as to why we're not performing, right? There's 10 other people that maybe you can think of, nope, sorry, it's not happening, it's not clicking. Individual sports, very different dynamic, right? And team sports also very different dynamic. Sometimes does someone who plays an individual sport, can they come into a team environment? Maybe not, right? Someone that's in a team environment, can they go to an individual sport, right? Maybe not, right? But again, what's really important as athletes is your ability to adapt, right? And how quickly can you adapt given your situation and given the, let's say a certain game is going to require one side of you, a different game is going to require a different side of you, right? And can those different sides come out like on demand, right? Because one game might require you to be more calm, right? And control, whereas another game might require a different level of intensity, right? And having the ability as an athlete to make those switches is really, really important. So I think individual athletes, hats off to them. People that play in team environments and team sports, again, hats off to them, because again, athletes all have different challenges, whether you're individual or if you're in a team sport.
Yes. So whose idea was it that you shouldn't be a goalkeeper, but a
So that was,
midfielder?
yes. So yeah, in the US, in the highest level I played, I'm a goalkeeper. That is my position. That's what I've been trained in for years. When I moved to the UAE and nobody knew me, I was like, okay, let me try something else. I had put on a lot of weight. I'm going to be a little vulnerable here, but I had put on a lot of weight at the time, moving to the UAE, moving to a new country. I was like, okay, let me just go play in the field. I want to, drop some kgs, right? And then I just ended up staying in the midfield for the past 10 years. And I think, however, like being a goalkeeper and having the game played in front of me for over 15 years, right? You start to understand the game as a whole, right? Not just position based, right? Because literally you're the last person, right? So you see all of the different, patterns of play that can happen. And I think having seen that really just helped me be able to understand the game and be able to play in the midfield at the international level.
When you're a child, and a coach tells you to play a certain position, when you want to play another position, it is very heartbreaking at times, but it is always adding to your experience.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell a lot of the young players. I say, yes, it's great to be a specialist, right? No doubt, right? Specialize in a position. But if you're able to play in different positions, you are able to understand the game a lot better than somebody that's just able to play one position, because you know that if you're playing left back, right? Or let's say you're a center mid and you get asked to play left back. Okay. Once you go back to that center mid position, you're going to understand the type of movements that the left back is going to make in a game, right? So I know if the left back, I want them to get involved in the attack, I need to play the ball in an advanced position for them as a midfielder, because I'm going to know without looking that, all right, when I was playing left back, I was getting in advanced positions, right? To help in the attack or to help in the build up. So I'm going to sit there and play the ball into space because I know they're going to be there, right? Or I know I go back again. It just really helps you in understanding where your teammates are going to be or should be for that matter on the pitch.
Okay, so when you tried getting into Pakistani team, Pakistan was going through a FIFA ban,
Yeah.
Caused by Supreme Court's order of phony elections, which FIFA never recognized. So by the time you got into Pakistani team, did you think you have a chance, as in Pakistan will come back and play while you're still in your sporting years, or you had left all hope?
To be honest, I didn't mind either way. I was just happy to be able to be playing, right? And again, you as a person, right? You try to focus on controlling what you can control, right? Whether Pakistan football was banned at the time, whether they weren't banned at the time, I knew that I was falling back in love with the sport because of the girls here and because of the country and mainly these girls, right? And being with my teammates. And I was like, you know what, regardless of what happens, we're focused on just being able to play, right? Whenever the moment did come, all right, we'll be ready. If it didn't come, that's fine. It's not going to come. We're still focusing on us. We're still focusing because we genuinely love what we're doing, right? Back to your question, are you enjoying it? We're enjoying it. So again, regardless of what is out of our control, we're not worried about that. I was not worried about that. I'm going to control on getting better and staying ready no matter what. That when whatever ban or whatever happens, we're ready when we're called upon.
So in the meanwhile, before you went on to play in Nepal and then Saudi Arabia, and initially you played the domestic season or interdepartmental cup, whatever it's called. You played for Wabda.
Yes.
So how was the experience? And so in cricket, we did this experiment. We dismantled all the department teams and it didn't turn out well.
Yeah.
So what's the scene like in football?
So for women's football, historically, there was just the National Women's Championship, as well as national games, but that's outside of the PFF. So historically, we had the tournament that was once a year where teams would get together probably 1 month, 2 months before the actual competition, start training, and then play the competition, which we know from a development point of view, again, probably not the best route to take. So as far as, historic things go, I think, to be honest, the more teams that are providing opportunities for girls to play and women to play consistently, it's really important, right? Whether that's departments or clubs, that's out of my expertise. As a player, I'm focused on playing, right? And I'm going to go, and players are going to go where they can play and they can develop and they can grow. However, looking forward to the future and what's to come, I think everyone has really understood the importance of being able to provide that pathway, right? And have consistency and have more than just one tournament a year, right? That's considered the highest level of competition in the country for girls and for women. So I think the focus is really going to need to be on the future and how we're going to provide sustainable opportunities for young girls and for women in football.
So women cricketers in past have often complained that the board doesn't focus on them as much as it does on men's team. What about football? As in, is the board's focus more on men or both are neglected equally?
I mean, the best way I can say it is I don't think a lot of people know this, and I think it's really important to share. Both men's and women's team are subject to equal pay. Women's team, men's team get paid exactly the same during our time with the national team. So for me, that's the best way I can answer your question. That speaks for itself.
So when you're in Pakistan and the camp is going on, in which city do you guys practice the most?
Yeah, so we're primarily in Lahore.
Oh, okay.
And that's because our federation house is based in Lahore. So again, just being able to put on and execute a reliable camp, it makes sense to have it here.
And where exactly do you guys practice, as in which ground?
There's a ground that's a local school that has an 11-a-side facility or 11-a-side pitch that we do use just to be able to make sure that we're replicating what we're going to experience, abroad or because Pakistan has a lot of futsal. There's a lot of futsal courts everywhere, not so many 11-a-side pitches.
So it must be very inspiring for the kids in the school watching you guys play?
It is nice. Sometimes we run into them, as we're actually leaving the ground as they're arriving for school, because we train very early in the morning.
Because of the heat?
The heat, yeah. So the weather, so our trainings are mainly, if we do have training twice a day, it's mainly in the morning or later in the afternoon. Yeah, once school is out.
So what about the infrastructure? Do you think the ground that you practice on matters, the quality of the ground?
Absolutely, right? It's about being able to, make sure that athletes are safe. That's one of the most important things. And that comes from, having good grounds good grounds, good courts, whatever sport it is, just being able to have, good and safe environments to participate in. I think, can it be better? Of course, anywhere it can be better, right? If I'm in the UAE, of course, there's grounds that, can be better to train on. But again, given what we do have, I think the federation and the normalization committee does do a really good job making sure that the athletes are taken care of and do have the best in regards to what the country can offer at the time.
So I'm also curious, what kind of gifts do you guys give each other, you and Omar? Are heels or joggers?
Oh my God, definitely football cleats. I think for maybe one of my presents every year is actually a pair of football boots from Omar. He knows exactly what shoe, what size, everything.
What about social media? Are you on it? Are you very frequent poster or something, as in contributor?
Yeah, so that's actually a journey in itself. It's something that I have recently picked up. I do understand the importance of being able to use a platform for good, and just being able to raise awareness, right? And that's what it's about. That's why, doing shows like this, you giving people the opportunity and athletes to come share their stories. It's providing a platform, right? For people to hear it from you, right? We always have, the media or, the public trying to narrate the story of someone else, right? And speak on people's behalf. So I think having opportunities like this, having opportunities like social media and platforms like social media, it really allows you to narrate your own story. So I'm still learning it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I am very new to it. I was never a poster until recently. But again, I definitely do understand the importance of it and using it for good.
So has it ever happened to you that a young player comes to a senior player and asks them to talk to their parents?
I think the parents come to me first before the player comes to me. I think the players like telling their parents, don't talk to anyone, right? Because when you're younger, you don't want your parents always involved. But again, being a senior player, I do understand the importance of being able to make sure the families feel comfortable, right? With their daughter being away from home for so long. So we need the parents' support and we need the parents' buy-in. Right? We need to show them that your daughter is safe. Your daughter is in a healthy environment that's going to teach her very important life skills. So I actually do speak to some of the parents, and again, just to reassure them, because we do have a big age gap on the team, right? We have some very young players in the team, mashallah, who deserve to be there, who are some of the best players in the country. And it's really exciting, right? To be able to have such young talent in the team. So again, it is very important to make sure that their families do feel comfortable and are assured that their daughter is in a safe and healthy environment. So yeah, I definitely talk to the parents probably before the player.
So you've often talked about how Pakistani players should seek opportunities outside Pakistan. In fact, you're also helping some youngsters getting some opportunities outside Pakistan. So how difficult it is for our women or sportsmen to look for such opportunities, and how should one do it?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's not as difficult as people think. I think the hardest part is being able to put together enough of a profile of a player to be able to showcase them, right? Because let's be honest, scouts are not coming to Pakistan yet. You'll start to see there's some, scouts that understand the potential talent that is sitting in the country. And we are starting to get, some scouts coming over and acknowledging, what amazing talent we have in this country. But right now, and I'll speak from the women's side, is, it's the challenge that we have is, do we have enough highlights on each player playing 11-a-side football to be able to send, to clubs or to universities abroad, right? Because if, for example, that scout's not coming over from a university, right, they're relying heavily on, word of mouth, right? Do I trust the person that's communicating that this player has potential, as well as the film that they're seeing or the profile that they're seeing? So it's very difficult for a scout to make a decision when they see a player playing futsal, right? Or 5v5 or, friendlies or something that are not high level competitions, which reflect the actual 11-a-side game. So I think that's one main challenge. But again, I think once we start to fix the domestic side and lay that roadmap down, and I think us having the opportunity to compete internationally regularly is a real positive in being able to support building enough of a profile for a player to get them opportunities abroad.
So if a player has played for Pakistan, then there shouldn't be any problem for her to go outside and get a scholarship or something.
Again, it comes from being able to, how are you going to showcase that, right? Because again, a lot of, like you saw, I was in the US, a big part of my childhood. It took me time to find out that Pakistan had women's football or even had football. Right? So it's about, one, are we as a country doing a good job raising awareness first internally? And are we getting that support internally as a country? Once you have that, and once we'd say, okay, we are a footballing nation. Yes, we're a cricket nation, but we're also a footballing nation also. Once we start to build that identity, then again, people will start to understand, oh, okay, there's football happening there. They're the 5th largest country in the world, population over 200 million. There's a lot of talent sitting there. Why aren't we going over there? Right? So I think there's a lot of different elements that, are going to come into play and that play a role in this. But nowadays, is representing a national team enough to get opportunities abroad? Maybe. But again, you have to have that profile, right? You have to have that, again, because scouts aren't coming over yet. So do you have that highlight tape? That highlight tape, that player profile is absolutely critical.
So what exactly can you and, other senior players do about it?
Yeah, so what we're doing is, being able to help these girls start by building their profile. Hey, okay, if let's say, for example, you don't have 11-a-side game film, right? Because maybe you didn't get the opportunity to play in this tour. Very normal. It's okay. Okay, can we get you out on the field and record a one-on-one session, right? Let's show your touch on the ball. Let's show your striking. Let's show your passing range. Let's show your vision, right? These are all things that can be done. And me and some of the senior players are currently helping the girls build their profile, right? Okay, let's sit them down. Let's help them understand what kind of things go into a player profile. Yes, height, age, nationality, weight, accolades, what teams you've played for. Have you played interdepartment? Have you played, with a club, academy, stuff like that, and getting them really to understand the importance of it and building their profile.
Okay, so I'm going to put you in a spot. I want an answer. Who do you think is more proud of you, your husband or your mom?
I think they're both very proud of it. I can't, oh my God, I couldn't, I honestly, I couldn't, because to be fair, both have played such a big part in my journey, right? Those two are probably a big core of my support system. My mom forcing me to practice when I was younger, making sure I went to training, even though I didn't want to go. She made sure that we went. I would always get we paid for it, so we're going. We're going to get our money's worth. And then, fast forwarding to the role my husband plays, he has taught me what it means to be a good teammate. And I think for me, that's been one of the biggest value adds to my game is I've learned the importance of making people feel included, right? Because when I was in the US, I didn't feel included in the teams I played in, right? Because nobody looked like me. I was playing with white girls, right? And I was the brown girl that didn't fit in. They came from very privileged backgrounds. I was there on a scholarship because my family couldn't afford to send me there, right? So I knew what it felt like to be excluded. And, you know, with Omar coming into the picture and teaching me the importance of a teammate packaged with my experience that I had, I knew that, you know, if I was ever part of a team or, you know, one of the leaders within a team, I would do everything in my power to make sure everyone felt they had a voice, to make sure everyone felt included. Because if you as a player don't feel included in your own team, it'll be very difficult to get the best out of you. Because I was a victim, like I experienced it, right? And I know what it felt like to be included. And I promised myself I would never make any player feel that way.
Okay, so before coming to Pakistan, when you were in UAE, you met Zulfiya and Mahpara there.
Yeah.
How did they make it to UAE? So UAE have scouts in Pakistan or something?
So we have a women's league. So the UAE have an active women's league. And at that time, I believe it was just a 7-a-side women's league with the 11-a-side league happening in parallel. And I think they had someone that was running one of the local teams here, had a relationship with one of the teams that were in the league and said, hey, I have some very high potential players. Let me go ahead and bring them over for a season and let's see how it goes. And the two came over and did a really great job in the league. And because the football community is so small in the UAE, everyone kind of knows everybody. It was like, oh, hey, you're Pakistani? Hey, I'm Pakistani too. And then you start to build that relationship. And until this day, me and Zulfi are super close. We get together regularly in the UAE and play together, etc. And that's, again, what can happen, right? Is being able to, get talent, get them experience abroad.
Okay, so even in sports like cricket, which is immensely popular in Pakistan, so the circuit is really small.
Yeah.
But in football, if you are actually really good and you actually make it to the team, then do you think it's a reasonable career option, as in, can you make your ends meet by doing just this?
If it's consistent, right? I think that's with any job, right? It needs to be sustainable. So we have to ask ourselves at the moment, is women's football sustainable in the country? History has shown us otherwise, and we've all been on an emotional roller coaster with not just women's football, men's football in the country as well. So I think to answer that question, we have to ask, is this sustainable? We don't know the answer. We'll never know the answer, right? But if you're given an opportunity to, represent your country, money aside, that in itself is an absolute honor.
Which reminds me, you're about to create history again. You guys are going for Olympic qualifiers.
Yes.
Tell us more.
So it's the first time in Pakistan's history that either men's or women's football is going to participate in the Olympic qualifiers.
And both are going?
So women are going first. I believe men might be later on. So yeah, it's an amazing honor, and we're really looking forward to the opportunity.
And how hopeful are you guys?
We're always hopeful, right? Again, as an athlete, you can't go in not hopeful, right? But we also know that we've put in a lot of work and we've been together for some time now, and we are appreciative of our growth as a team in such a small amount of time. So yes, as much as results are important, we also have to take a moment to appreciate how we've grown and how we've developed as a team.
Thank you so much, Maria, for your time. There are so many things that I still want to ask. I know you have to go, but we need to have another session.
We will, definitely.
Where I ask you rest of the questions.
Deal.
How you feel about your cousins, how they feel about you.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's rivalry or you guys...
There's always rivalry in sports. Always. Always.
आपका बहुत ज़्यादा शुक्रिया, आपने हमें देखा और आप मारिया को उनके तमाम सोशल्स पर फॉलो कीजिए, इनके तमाम मैचेस देखिए और हमेशा की तरह जो आपके सवाल हैं कमेंट सेक्शन में अपने असल नाम के साथ, अगर आपका प्रोफाइल नेम कुछ दूसरा है तो अपना सवाल छोड़िए, हम वो सवाल मारिया को भेजेंगे और आपको उनके जवाब दिलवाएंगे। अपना बहुत ज़्यादा ख्याल रखें। खुदा हाफिज़।